Hey there.
Hello there. Sorry, I got a phone call as we started the live. Hello. Nice to see you, Tamara. Welcome to the Hotel Marketing Live Show. Today it's all about content strategy and specifically repurposing content. A topic that you like, Tamara, don't you?
I love that topic because I mean, there's so much content. We create so much content. So there's an opportunity to repurpose it in ways that people may not even be thinking. So that's one of my favorite topics. It saves us time as well, too. So love that.
But I think today's episode will be quite short, right? Because repurposing content means, like, let's say we have a set of images of our new restaurant, right? So we just use these images across all channels. We copy and paste captions for all channels. And that's it, right? It's just a matter of copy and pasting, right, Tamara?
Not that simple.
Oh,
Can copy
so
and paste, but it's not that simple, right? It's thinking about how to use it creatively, how to creatively repurpose the content, right? And I think we need to start off with, really talking about the content strategy in general, right? Where are you starting with a content strategy, and you want to start off with what are my business goals? What am I trying to achieve? And then what is the content I need to put out there? So for hotels, for instance, you want to draw more people to your hotel. So what is the information that you're going to put out there that's going to draw them to your hotel? And once you understand that content, you develop, what I like to call content pillars. So maybe it's things about the destination, things specifically about the hotel, the restaurants, all the things that are draws. You build those in as your content pillars, and that's the content you start putting out there. But then you can think about content in a way where it's like, well, if I have an image, how can I use this image in a video? If I have a video, how do I cut a piece and maybe take an image from it? What platforms and channels am I repurposing it on? If it worked really well, if I have something that worked really well on Instagram, can I use that on another platform or channel that can also drive me some additional visibility? So there are a lot of things to consider when you're thinking about a content strategy and then leveraging that content, repurposing that content.
I think the very first step, like, let's say someone has never heard about repurposing content. So by repurposing content, I think we agree on the definition. It means of using existing content, something you already have created, in a different way so that you may expand its reach. You may expand its reach maybe on a different channel. Do you agree with me on this definition?
Yeah,
It's
absolutely. I think it's repurposing content, and it's you can expand it by saying also, how do you now take that and repurpose it? For instance, we took some video the other day and we pulled quotes out of the video, and now we're repurposing that as an image. So there's a
So from
lot
one big piece, you can get smaller pieces,
of
right?
pieces of it, content. Yeah.
Absolutely. We all know how much of a headache creating content can be for hotels, for individuals, especially when it comes to hotels that you might not have an in-house content creation team, right? So it also becomes a matter of how you spend your budget for content creation, right? So you might have photographers take some amazing pictures of your new restaurant, some longer videos, and then you can use that content in different ways so that you spend your money a bit
Right.
in a more efficient
Yeah.
way.
It's an idea of taking each piece of content and looking to see, how can I repurpose this, right? Can I take this image? Can I put it in a Reels? Can I put it in a
Yeah.
TikTok? Can I put it in if you're using Pinterest, can I put it in an idea pin? If you're going to use Google Ads, can I put it in the image area within Google Ads? How many ways can I slice it up so I, as you said, maximize really the value of that piece of content and get it maximum visibility? Because sometimes as hoteliers and marketers, we're like, oh, we always want something new and fancy. We always want something, but
Well,
with
it can be presented in a new way.
absolutely, but also with people, what really works is repetition, right?
Yeah.
Seeing that thing again and seeing it, because then it comes to the recall, like, I saw that. Let me pay attention to it, but you can still distribute it in a different way.
And as a hotel marketer, let's say, because budget is never infinite, right? So let's say you have, I don't know, X budget. So if you're trying to get buy-in, for instance, for a photo shoot, if you can show the different ways you're going to use that photography, then and it's easier to get the money from your finance department, which I know is always a kind of a battle, right? To get the money for photo shoots, especially, right, and video shoots.
Right.
But then I think very, very important, like that we've defined repurposing, and I think every hotel needs to decide which channels they want to be on,
Mhm.
right? It's very important. Before you think how to repurpose, you need to be sure which channels you're going to go for, right? Rather than testing is good, by all means, test and try, but not too much, right?
Right.
So maybe let's say you want Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn. And then once you've defined your channels, it becomes easier to know how you will repurpose that content.
Absolutely, right? I agree with you 100%. Understanding the platforms and channels you want to be. Number one, you really need to understand where your audience is. And once you understand that, that's really helpful. But focusing in on those platforms, those channels are important because you get to a place of how am I maximizing and getting everything I can get? It's like a sponge and you're like, squeeze. What else can I get from this platform and channel, right? And how is the content working for me, right? The other thing that's important with content is clear call to actions, right? What do you want people to do? So in that content, you want to look at the ideal mix of things, right? What is the
Mhm.
imagery saying? What is the call to action? What's the experience that the end user should be getting with that piece of content? And for you to really get the full value of that content, it's super
And
important.
that also can be presented in a different way. So if let's say the call to action always has to be clear, right? Like book now, book room now, or book your table now, right? It has to be a clear rather than vague. If you might ever fancy some sushi, why don't you pass by, right? It has to be a very clear call to action. But also,
Yes.
yeah, but also when repurposing, sometimes because I like A/B testing a lot. Yeah, sometimes you can repurpose when you're repurposing the content, put the call to action in a different manner, and test and see how people are reacting to it, how responding to it, right? Because at the end, let's be honest, repurposing is not only about expanding reach of the content and using it efficiently. It also gives you the opportunity to try new things. An existing piece of content might have not performed well on Instagram, for instance. That doesn't mean that you throw it away. You try adapting it, for instance, for, I don't know, LinkedIn. I'm just giving examples here, right? And this will give you the opportunity to learn. Yeah. You see, and I know, Tamara, you're a numbers person. So then you look at the numbers, you see how many people have liked, so many people have shared, and that teaches you, right, how your clients respond to content.
Absolutely. I think that's, yeah. So we have to use those KPIs. I always like to talk about going beyond the likes, but like is a metric that you can leverage
It
to
is.
see did people engage with that content? Did share is a metric you could say, did people share that content, right? What did they do with that content? And that gives you some idea of, oh, I'm moving in the right direction. This got me this many likes and it got me this many shares. This is content people like to see. Now, how do I take that to the next level with the right call to action? So it's really always about optimizing your content and finding the things that are really, really engagement driving. Because once you find that engagement driving content, then it leads to the next steps along the way, right? The next step of let me go see what their hotel is all about. Let me click, go read a little bit more. Oh, this destination is on my list. And that's how things really kind of start moving forward.
But I know a question that will come up with some hoteliers saying, okay, repurposing content. Let's say I have content from 2 years ago. Is it still relevant? I think
Yeah.
it could still be relevant. It depends on the context, right? I mean, if you're talking about destination, about the most popular museums in your city, right? Most probably it's still relevant, right? So don't be scared of using old content, right? 2 years back. First of all, your followers on Instagram have probably changed over time. And I don't
Right.
remember what you posted 2 years ago. Doesn't mean you have to, right? It doesn't mean that you have to repost it exactly as it is. Change
Right.
something, right? Change the caption at least. But please do keep your content. Don't throw away things because it can still be relevant in maybe 2 years time. Do you agree with me, Tamara?
100%. I mean, I feel like there's so many stories you can tell with the content where things were 2 years ago. If you're looking to showcase upgrades, for instance, if
Yeah.
you're looking showcase, we're still the number one in the world. Here's what we did 2 years ago. It's good for our reels. It's good for a real storytelling. So that old content is so relevant. We're going through some old content right now
Yep.
that we did 2 years ago to say, hey, what's the use case for this, and how are we going to repurpose this to get it in front of the right audience? So you can use all the content you have. You just really have to think about, what is this strategy and what is the story I'm trying to tell, so that my potential guests can, be intrigued, and then move them to a place of, let me click here.
But by repurposing content, do we also include cases where you literally just copy and paste? Is that repurposing, or is that just copy and pasting? And is it bad practice in your opinion?
Well, so I don't know that it's bad practice, right? I think it always depends, right? I feel like, marketing, you have to create your own marketing formula. If you recognize that something has worked and you posted it, maybe let's say 2 months ago, and you recognize that it worked, and everything about it worked. Well, keep in mind how many people saw that in your audience. Maybe 5% of the people. If you're doing Instagram and you're using Reels, maybe a little bit more if you weren't using Reels at that point in time. Now here's an opportunity to give that content a little bit more push to get more people seeing it. So yeah, sometimes you can't absolutely just copy paste and use what you used before, but I would mix that in. I wouldn't do that all the time. It's a nice hybrid. It's a way to keep you really, kind of give you an opportunity to breathe. And then also, what we want is, we want the best performing content. Once we understand what the best performing content is, that's the thing that we can keep showing. So it just simply means you've identified a really great piece of content. It's worked for you. And now you're going to use it again to get more people to see it, right? It's a visibility game, and getting more and more people to see the content. So I would sometimes say, hey, run it for as long as you can, once a month.
Use with moderation, as with
Yeah.
everything, right? You don't want to bore people always with the same theme, with the same topics, with the same kind of imagery. So that's why we call it the art of repurposing content, because it's not as easy as it sounds, because you need to have this right balance, right? Between the repetition that Tamara was talking about. So people, if you have a new promotion or you have a new restaurant, people need to hear about it several times before they actually understand, yeah, you have a new restaurant, and they remember it. But you also don't want to bore people with the same type of content and the same message over and over again. You're just presenting it in a different way. That's how I see the tricky bit in repurposing content. The other, getting back to my question to you, Tamara, when I was asking, is it bad practice or not? So I agree with you that it's not necessarily bad practice. If you're doing it all the time, it's very bad practice. But from time to time, you also have to remind, let's say, your Instagram users that you have a TikTok account, or you want to remind your LinkedIn followers that you're also on Instagram, right? And that you're sharing different content, yeah? So you want to show them that content so that they say, okay, we would be interested in following your other social networks. So this is something that I personally recommend hotels did from time to time, if they have different platforms, is to try to get the followers from one platform to also follow the other platform.
Absolutely. And I think the opportunity there is, from short bits of content to longer bits of content across these platforms. It can be the same conversation, but what's the bit that you're getting on Instagram that may be 15 to 30 seconds? That bit that you're getting on TikTok that might be, 60 seconds. That bit that you're going to get on LinkedIn that might be a text post that might be a little bit longer. So it's almost like you can have them follow the trail to get the full story. And that's a way of keeping people engaged across different platforms, so that they're like, you know what, this brand is always doing something that, every time I look, I see a little bit more, or I learn something new from them across each platform and channel. Because I think it's smart to have the people that are following you in one place follow you in another space as well too, because that's what we really look at when we're thinking about the omni-channel approach, right? Getting them in different spaces and engaging, so they trust you more. They're building that, they're building that relationship with you and your brand at that point in time as well.
They get to see different sides of personality also, right? Because you show different sides of the hotel on different channels, or you present your hotel in different ways on different channels. And if you are really good at content repurposing, then you can also be creative. Not only think of, I'm going to repurpose a long video in a shorter video, or this image is in a different crop size. You can also think of repurposing your newsletter into a TikTok video. Yeah. So you can really be creative with the ways you are repurposing your content. Yeah. It can be a completely different format, like a newsletter, that you are using for a series of TikTok videos, for instance, or for your LinkedIn Live that you use then for Instagram. Yeah. So it's not just like cropping, and it can also be a bit more creative, which is tricky, right?
Yeah, agreed, 100%. It comes back to the content strategy, right? And having in that content strategy, what are the topics? What are the key topics? Do I have 5 things that I'm going to be talking about, right? What are my content pillars? And those are the conversations that you're having across all your channels. So really, what are those topics? And then within those topics, what are the subtopics that happen? That's really how you build out that content strategy with the content pillars. And then you add in, okay, this image goes with this topic. This video, I can turn this image into a video with this topic, and you start really building out all the parts you can have. Oh, I can do a quick live talking about this and give 3 tips, the art of repurposing content, all the things we're talking about. I want to also say that you're using that strategy as well in marketing, the hotel marketing space, right? So it's how do we repurpose
the marketing of the marketing? Yeah,
the marketing of the marketing, right? How do you repurpose the content? You're repurposing it on YouTube. We've talked about YouTube Shorts. You're repurposing content on TikTok. You're repurposing content on Instagram. So it's letting people know, hey, here's the content we're using, but here you're actually doing it, right? It's my point.
And always with the same style, yeah? Meaning, let's take the hotel marketing space as a very specific example, right? So what I'm doing on TikTok, I am posting things that let's say the 3 top points or the 5 top, I don't know, channels or so on. So giving some tips that I have already shared, for instance, on Instagram, right? But what we're doing on TikTok is we are presenting it more in TikTok style. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that we are dancing on TikTok.
No dancing.
No, you have to stay true to your nature, to your style. Yeah. Doesn't mean that you see a lot of people are dancing, going viral with dancing means that you have to start dancing. No. Yeah.
Right. Come on, let's break a move.
No, because a lot of people, they hear TikTok, for instance. So TikTok is a very specific example where people hear the word of the channel and they say, no, I don't want to dance. Automatically, that's the answer that you get from people, right? It's, no, I don't want to dance. Or no, I'm not that stupid, right? That's the reaction of people. You don't have to, when we say repurposing content on TikTok, doesn't mean that you need to start dancing or acting stupid. You can maintain your style, your brand guidelines. So for instance, hotel marketing space, the branding is gray, tones of grays with olive green. So that is maintained on TikTok. On Instagram, it has a different branding because it was an older account. But to say that you just have to stay true to your brand and to your tone of voice and to your style when you are repurposing content, and not just say, okay, others are doing this, so I will also do that. I don't know, what are your thoughts, Tamara?
No, I agree with you 100%. I think you have to remain true to your brand, right? You said the other day, earlier on, you talked about it's different sides of the personality, and what's the side that you want to showcase, because coming back to the end goal, is the end goal to drive engagement for more people to come stay at your hotel. So what are the sides that people need to see to come to stay at their hotel, right? I would look at something like a TikTok video. If it's a hotel that's close to an ocean, what does it look like coming out of the ocean, right? You can showcase someone, like almost like you're there, like you're coming out of the ocean. That's something on TikTok that could go viral, get a lot of visibility. So it's thinking about, how do you present the information in a way that your potential customer is going to be hooked, engaged in 3 or 4 seconds, and continue to watch the content, then moving them to that place of, how do I get to their website? Where am I going to book and learn more about them, right? So you do not need to dance. There's no need, unless you want to dance.
Of course, but by all means, do check what is trending.
Yes.
So if you see that a certain audio is trending, think of a creative way of using that audio because for instance with TikTok, that's what works. If you see, or Instagram, you see reels, right, are quite popular now. So do use reels, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do see what is working maybe for other hotels or other brands, and learn from them, right? And but only take what also works for your hotel. Yeah, that's the whole point. It's not just take everything. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's always right finding the right balance, right?
Right. And it is about what's your balance, right? So everything, I love that you say that, right? Because many times we hear, oh my goodness, I have to do all the things everybody else is doing. Absolutely not. What is your blueprint for your marketing? How have you been marketing the hotel before and what's been working? And then how do you take those things and then think about them in digital, right? Because a lot of offline stuff may translate very well to digital because there's so much content happening in a space in a hotel. There's user generated content that we haven't even considered and talked about.
Yeah.
That's a great opportunity to repurpose and really get your audience and people that have stayed at your hotel highly involved with you. And then people love to be tagged. They love when they're tagged and you highlight them, right? So there's so many things you can really consider. If you walked into the hotel lobby and just looked around at all the content that's there, every bit of, if there's a statue, what's the story behind the statue, right? How do you draw people in? There's content there. And sometimes that content doesn't need to be done with a professional photographer. Of course, you want to get those room shots, but mobile is really good right now, right? It's giving that moment of authenticity right there with your phone and then getting that up and running, so it's something that absolutely can be done and you don't need to dance, right? Find your formula and then really push your message forward.
And I love that you mentioned user-generated content, because that is a trend that I think will carry on, UGC content marketing, because it helps also in terms of budget, right? So you have your guests creating content for you. I'm not going to say for free, maybe you offer. Hotels have to be also big collaborative in this case, right? So if you see that hotel guest is taking very nice pictures, you notice during their stay, you might want to create a nice dessert to have to put in their rooms. You might want to surprise them with a nice fancy cocktail where there's by the pool. Hotels need to also be a bit active, right? And
Yeah.
that's where I think a hotel social media manager needs to really proactively try to generate user-generated content, right? I know that's a whole other topic, but that will help you with your content repurposing, because you could the day they are posting, let's say, the nice fancy cocktail that you've prepared for them by the pool, that will just be a repost. But maybe in a month's time you can keep that for, you say, when you have, I don't know, our 5 top best-selling cocktails, right? So there you go.
Yeah.
It gives you content for later. But yeah, one has to be proactive. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that I know from hotels, sometimes people are just too busy, right? Too
Right.
busy not to think of that, because user-generated content, I'm sure you agree, Tamara, is not just bloggers and influencers. It's your actual paying guests, right?
Actual paying guests who actually, we're in a culture of walk around with our phones. Like I was in a restaurant the other day and someone walked in. From the minute they walked into the restaurant, the phone was out and they captured everything. That's the culture that we're in. What you need to grab onto that and add that to your marketing. Make your guests feel as though I want you to create content. I want you to create good content about our hotel, and then give them a place to showcase it, right? And that could save you so much time. It's so helpful, save you time, and you can definitely use that in your marketing later on. And that really adds to the authenticity of it, because it's not you talking about your hotel, it's someone who's staying there, who's had the experience.
Has more value.
More
More value for your
Well,
followers.
it's all about the review and all about what somebody says about
Absolutely.
it, right?
So content of Akash saying that he has a file with over 10,000 pictures, different subject matters, so that he adds new content with older content to create new content. Which is a very, very good point, because you can mix older content with newer content, right? It's not just about saying then and now. Some people don't even know that it's maybe 2 years old.
They don't. They do not. A lot of people don't know that it's 2 years old. You know what I mean? Creators should be paid for their content. Paying creator is how social will evolve too. Absolutely. I think creators should be paid for their content. But you know what I think we're also talking about here too is if a guest is taking pictures and having a good time, right? They're not necessarily thinking about themselves as content creators. They're thinking about themselves as documenting their trip. So I think there is definitely a fine line of, hotels getting into a space of, paying everyone, people who are documenting their trip, but could also, you know what I mean? Again, maybe there's that additional benefits, all that stuff, right? So we
Well,
really,
if paying can also come in the form of, as I said, like for instance, you know that they're lounging by the pool now, and you know that they share a lot. So you surprise them with a nice fruit basket. You
right.
surprise them with a nice cocktail, right? You surprise them with something that you know they will take pictures of. So this is not payment, cash payment, but you are giving them, you're
A
giving them
little
something
extra, right? A little
funny,
extra.
right?
Right, something that's a little bit extra for the stuff that they're for their stuff, or for the stuff that they're documenting for their holidays, right? So I think we want hotels to not be in a space where they're always thinking about someone as a social media influencer as well too, right? Because there's a strategy for that. So user generated content is an opportunity to repurpose. I think there's definitely that fine line of what we can give and what hotels will be able to give, right?
So one more comment from Akash, that people sometimes, if you're sharing older content, then people think that you were there, but actually you weren't. It's just based on their content, you think that you're traveling somewhere. So yeah, there's a lot of fake it till you make it on social media. We know that. But I do think, yeah. So let's summarize the repurposing content. So let's say someone is a hotel marketer is saying, okay, oh my God, I've never done this before. Step number one is defining what your channels,
Yeah,
right?
define the channels, right? Where are your channels? Where are your platforms? Are you going to be on Instagram? Are you going to be on TikTok? Are you going to leverage Facebook, right? You want to look at your website. You want to look at your OTAs, because all those places take up your content as well too. So anywhere that you're going to be putting content, you want to understand where those places are. The goal ideally is probably to get heads in beds, get people to come to your hotel. So now you want to look at that content and say, okay, how am I going to break this content down? What percentage of it is about the destination? Maybe you're a beach destination, and you want to talk about things in the area. You want to talk about things within the hotel as well. You want to give some tips for traveling to the region. All the things that really matter to your guests, you kind of create those categories, and then within that, create maybe 5 or 6 things that you can talk about in each category of content. What's the subcategory of content? And then you take that information and you start looking to see what image goes with this, right? If I'm talking about the destination, what image goes with this? Maybe I need beach images. Maybe I need images of, a balloon in the air, one of those air balloons. What are the things that I need to draw people in? And that's how you start really building out that content strategy and connecting the dots. And then understanding in your content strategy, what are my clear call to actions? How many times am I saying book now? How many times am I saying learn more? How many times am I saying, check this out? But you always want to say something because you want to lead them to that next place. And really and truly, that's kind of how you start building that strategy. And then looking at the content that really works. What's moving the needle? What's getting the most clicks? What's getting the most likes? What's getting the most follows? What's getting the most shares? And leaning into that, because there's a winning formula in there, and you want to understand what is that winning formula and how do I use it, and now how do I repurpose this to get it in front of more people? What could it look like on all these other platforms? Could it look different on TikTok? Could it look different on Reels? And that's where you get to that repurposing, and also to a place where you're really truly optimizing for the most effective content that drives people to book in your hotels.
And content that has not performed well, then you might want to use the winning formula, which Lamar has just explained, to see if it performs better under that formula, right? So there's a lot of testing, right? There's a lot of trying out things. And sometimes you might want to also, I'm a big fan of, from time to time, trying something that you know did not work, not very often, but just see, maybe the market has changed. Maybe your guests have changed, right? So from time to time, I like to test things that I know didn't work well, but maybe after 3 or 4 months, I say, I'll test that again, maybe change something, and see if it works now. And if you see that something just doesn't work, then drop it after some time. There's no point in,
Because
trying. Yeah.
sometimes you're ahead of the game. Sometimes you're ahead
Yeah.
of the trend, right? Sometimes you're thinking about these things and people they haven't caught up yet. And by the time they catch up, you're like, oh man, this worked. So yeah, absolutely. So if you are a content creator, you're creating content for your hotel, you should not be in a space. I believe we all have enough content to not be in a space where we need content, and we're all content rich. We just don't realize how content rich we are, right?
Hotels especially, my goodness. Yeah. We lost your audio for a second, Tamara. No, we lost you for a second. That's weird.
Is that better?
Yes. Yeah, now you're back. Yeah.
Yeah. So it seemed like I lost my mic for a second, but yeah.
No problem.
But yeah, I think it's really understanding the winning formulas we talked about, and that old content, if you can get it into that winning formula, could be game changing. And sometimes as marketers or hoteliers, you know so much, and you may just be ahead of a trend, so you can get back into that thing that may not have worked but could work later on. So I love that. So it's going back to your old content to find the new content, right?
Absolutely. No, I think we've given quite a few good tips for those who want to know more. We do have an Ask Me Anything strategy on content strategy session, on the content strategy on hotel marketing space, because there's lots to learn. I mean, now we have touched on a few points, but it's a very fascinating topic, and repurposing content is something both Tamara and I are big fans of, because it saves you time, right? It saves you money. And the results can be quite good actually for some hotels. So
absolutely, it can be. Yeah, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. We're doing it more and more all the time, and sometimes on my platforms, I see content and I'm like, oh, when did I do that?
No, absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
So it really makes things easier, and it allows you to really keep delivering the right message to your customers. So repurpose your content. All hotels are content rich. You have lots and lots of content. Yeah. Go back to those databases and pull them out and be like, when did we take this? When did this happen? Go back to your hotels, go back to your database now and check out your content.
Absolutely. So there's something to do, some homework for the hotels to do, given by Tamara. So thank you so much, Tamara. Thank you so much for watching live on LinkedIn or the replay on YouTube. And we'll catch you again soon. Bye for now.
Take care. Bye.